Greetings, it's Lisa from Lisa Loves channel. I'm here to do another review for Geek Legion of Doom. Today we bring you a little movie that hails from Argentina, so this one is in Spanish, What the Waters Left Behind, or to give it its original title, Los Olvidados. That means the Forgotten. This movie was written and directed by a pair of brothers, Luciano and Nicola Onetti, and we've also got someone else on board writing it with them. They wrote it also, Carlos Goicha. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. To give you some of the top billed cast in this one, we have Victoria Moret, Mirta Busnelli, Vittorio D'Alessandro, Paula Brasca and German Baldino. Right, this movie is kind of shot in places, a little found footage style that's right up my street. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but a lot of this, although it does have quite a bit of found footage in it, it's not entirely found footage, so don't let that put you off. This movie is actually, the story is centred around an event which is actually a real event. I looked it up afterwards. It's a little town in Argentina called Epecuen. 1985, a bit like Atlantis, it was submerged. This little city, this little town, was submerged under 10 metres of water and basically abandoned. All the residents left and the water didn't begin to subside again until 25 years later. This movie is set 30 years after that initial covering of the city. So we have a group of young documentary filmmakers going back to the abandoned town that basically no one has been in since. It's ruins, and with them they have a survivor from that incident. She was only a child at the time, lived with her grandmother, and they're bringing her back with them to sort of add a bit of depth to the documentary, and they're going to discuss with her memories that she may have about different places. That's Carla. She plays the role of Carla. So I don't want to give you too much of a storyline, as I don't feel in a review we want to tell you exactly what happens. But obviously when they get to the village, everything is not as it seems. It is supposedly abandoned, but possibly not. That's all I'll say about the actual storyline. I have to make parallels with this movie to a couple of very well-known movies that you may know, which kind of may give away a bit of where we're going with this, but if you've seen the trailer or read the synopsis, you'll know exactly what happens anyway. There are a lot of parallels with Texas Chainsaw Massacre with this movie, and also The Hills of Eyes, so that may give you a bit of an indication as to what we're talking about and what the young people encounter in the movie. So what did I think about it? Well, first off, everyone knows Spanish is a massive love of mine. The language is beautiful. It's all in Spanish, subtitled. Don't let that put you off. If you're not a fan of subtitles, you're missing so many awesome movies. I will have to give a special mention for the soundtrack of this movie, which I loved. It's quite rocky. It just really fit the movie really well, I felt, and the score throughout the movie was really good. Now these brothers are more known for their sort of giallo type movies. If you look at their past things that they've done, that's the sort of like feel that you're going for. This movie is definitely sort of horrific slash sort of, I don't want to say slasher, it is very much in line with The Hills of Eyes and Texas Chainsaw. Even down to a particular scene in the movie is almost plucked straight from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'll not tell you which one. If I watched this movie on its own basis and I hadn't seen those other movies, I was thoroughly entertained. The first half of this movie, there's pretty much no gore whatsoever. It's setting the story up. The latter half, then things start to hit the fan. We do get to see quite a bit of gore, all very well done as far as I'm concerned. They did concentrate more on putting the money into a couple of scenes, which worked extremely well, and then they sort of worked with cutting away and letting you make up your mind for yourself. But with the sound effects used and with how it was approached and showing certain weaponry used, I think it did still have that same effect of being quite a horrific thing. You didn't necessarily need to see everything laid out in front of you. So yeah, for someone that watches a lot of horror, quite a lot of gore and has watched a lot of that sort of thing, it does work well. It's right up there with a lot of other movies of a similar ilk. The acting, there's nothing that stood out to me as being bad. The acting was all pretty, you know, There was nothing that stood out as being ridiculously awful, or no lines of script that stood out as being really hideously bad. It was very easy to watch. I think the gore and the effects are the main thing you're going to be concentrating on here as to whether they're any good, and they were. The performances I don't think came into their own until the second half of the movie, because that's when we had to sort of ramp up the reactions, ramp up the way that the actors and actresses responded to the situations they found themselves in, and I felt they all did admirably well. Yeah, I would thoroughly recommend this one. I did enjoy it. As I say, I do love Spanish movies. This one, it was really interesting that the actual story was based around a real life event that did actually happen. So yeah, I have nothing but positive things to say about this one. I really enjoyed it. There is a bit of a twist in this also, which I did enjoy, which I didn't see coming. The only complaint I would have is that it does share a lot in common with those couple of movies that I mentioned. But really, in the world of horror, it is very, very difficult to find something that hasn't been done before, to find a novel concept, because everything's been done now. So I don't think that should be held against them necessarily. So yeah, that's Los Olvidados, What the Waters Left Behind, and I would thoroughly recommend it. If I had to score this one out of 10, it would come in at a, let's say, a 7 out of 10 for this one. It was a good solid watch that I recommended, and it is something I do feel that a lot of people that I share similar interests with movie-wise would enjoy this one, and it is one I would recommend to my friends. So have you seen this one? What did you think of it? Let us know in the comments below. Look forward to speaking to you next time.